Okay, hey everybody, this is Grace, and I want to talk about a time in my life that was when I think about it now, it was a bittersweet kind of thing. And I basically, it was about, when I really think about it, it could have been about 20 years ago. And I'm like, wow, it was that long ago, man. But the bittersweet side of it is that, well, the bitter side is that the people, two of the people, the main people that were there, have come since then have become since then people who are not good people in my life. I mean, I really haven't been around them much, and I don't know how many years. They're 7 hours away where they live. It's my old hometown. Want to move from there, but still, she's near. And I think the other one might still be there. I don't know. But the sweet memory was about when I was there back then. I went to one of them's birthday party, and she was a friend. She had been a friend since I was 10. The other one is one of my sisters, who people think we're twins, and we're 15 months apart. We're not twins. We don't even look, I mean, not all twins look alike. We definitely don't look alike. And anyway, that was like the last time I was really in a group setting with any of the people I grew up with. And it was mainly just those two. And then, to see their children and all this kind of thing. But it was one time, one of the things I'm not used to having is when I was with any of them, or when I was in my own old hometown, was that these were people who they always wanted to be center of attention. Okay, any of the people that I grew up with, it seemed like they needed to be the center of attention. Histrionic much. And me, they just would, how histrionic people do. They'll talk over you. They'll get the focus back on them, whether it's good attention or bad attention. They want it on them, Look at me, this kind of thing. And so I wasn't used to this kind of situation, and I'm not much on being center of attention. And I know how that sounds, given that I make videos. But do you ever see me on camera anymore? I've been making videos for the past, August will be 12 years with my original channel. And I have been on video before. It just has never been my thing to be actually on video much. I used to do it about once a year, and I stopped doing that a few years ago. So, anyway, like I say, my videos are for me to vent. The pressure release valve, and it's a good thing that I do this. My health and everything, I think my health is, I've had problems the past 3 years, but it could have been worse, much worse, if I hadn't had a place to vent. So anyway, I got all that background stuff. But this birthday party was the friend's birthday party, and she had people there. I had no idea who they were. But I got to see, her home and all that. And one of the things that happened was, two of them, was that I was the center of attention. And that's rare for me. I don't care for it. I really don't, to be the center of attention. And I'm more the quiet person, And I've always been that way. More of the quiet person. And me and my sister, the one that I'm saying, she's 15 months older than I, we were sitting at the kitchen table, and during this birthday party, and people were going in and out of the kitchen, and they had a barbecue or something, and there was food inside the kitchen, and people were in the living room, people were outside. There were, I think, something like volleyball or something outside. And so me and my sister, we were sitting in the kitchen. We were talking about old times and such. And, I was doing, more do you remember this? And she, my sister, was bouncing off of me, what I would say, and it just continued on like that. And the next thing I know, I mean, we've been sitting there for a while. We were laughing. We were looking right at one another. We were kind of laughing about things and remember, our memories and such like that. And she'd always been what I would call my evil twin, even though we weren't twins. She was always the evil one, seriously. But we still had some times, even though it was, we had bad times, a lot of them, more of them than good ones. Still, there were good memories here and there. And so we were living that moment, those moments again from when we were children. And we were both then in our 40s. And so and all of a sudden, we just kept talking, laughing and everything. And for some reason we paused, or somebody said something behind us, and we looked up, and the room was filled with people. People who were listening to us, including the children and the teenagers. Now that's a precious moment. When you have young people, kids, teenagers, and grown-ups. We weren't doing that on purpose. We were just talking about our, to one another, about all of our times, and people were just sitting there watching us like they were watching TV. You know what I'm saying? And it was precious. It was. But like I said, one of the bittersweet things about it was that sister of mine. She is the reason I don't go there anymore. I haven't been there in 12 years. Yeah, I think it's 12 years. Well, no, it's not 12 years. No, this year might be, wait, let me think, 14 years? Oh, no. Man, time is flying by, seriously. I don't know. It's been a long time. I don't go back there because of her. Yeah. And then the other memory from then, that was a good memory, from that same thing as we were, after that, or before then, I was sitting in the living room, and I saw this thing on the coffee table, I'm looking at it. I'm thinking, what is that? And I've always had this thing about puzzles. And just for the record, I'm not bragging. I have an impressive IQ. I never tell anybody what it is, but it's called genius. And there's a name for it, like I say. But anyway, I'm sitting there, I'm looking at that puzzle. And it's made out of just regular wood, plastic, this kind of stuff. I don't even know if they sell them in stores, this kind of thing. I'm looking at it. And I reach over and I look at it, and I have it in my hand, and I'm looking, and I go like that, shake my hands, and it was the balls, steel balls, on the ends of it went into side, and they're little holes, they're little, holes basically. And my friend, I did not know she was doing that. She was sitting, watching me the whole time. We've been friends since 10 years old, and she looked at it, watching me the whole time. And when I did that, she goes, "No way!" She screamed out, "No way did you do that!" And she explained to me how it's supposed to work. And she said there's nobody that she had ever known who was able to do it the way I did it. Okay, but the way it's supposed to work is you're supposed to spin it, and the centrifugal force would make it go whatever way. Okay. But I just went with my hands. She goes, "Do it again." I did it again. I think in the second time I said, okay. It's just, "No way." And that was funny to me. So it was a moment of good, memories of good times, and then a funny one to me. You see? And that's the kind of stuff I miss. I mean, I know it's not always that way when you're around people. But I have always lived away from there. For pretty much most of the time, I've lived away from there, from them. Okay. And it's just because they're just the people. They were always the ones that had to have the attention on them. Except for, well, the sister was with me, and we were just talking, so she was bouncing off of what I was saying, and so we were both center of attention then, and I'm just not one for that. I'm just not one. If you notice, it started raining since I've been out here making this video. It was not supposed to rain. That's why I came out. And where is this rain? We're not supposed to have rain. We had yesterday, and we've been having a lot of rain. It's not supposed to rain again. Today is Thursday until a week or so from now. Yesterday was bad, and I had to go to an appointment, doctor's appointment, and oh my goodness, people were driving like crazy. Some people don't have sense. God, like people used to say, God gave a goose. And that was such a cute expression. They don't have the brains that God gave a goose. I like that. I hope that's not taking God's name in vain kind of thing, but no. I mean, some people, they just don't have the sense. You don't go speeding. You don't drive fast. A lot of people slow down. And, there's no such thing as a slow lane legally, but socially, people know which one is the slow lane where you live. By the way, it's not always the same in different states. You know that, right? I'm Texan. In Texas, it's one thing. In Louisiana, it's a different thing. It's a different lane. Seriously. Or maybe it's changed since then, but not back then. And, but if you're in that lane and plus it puddles, and then you have to worry about hydroplaning, and then we have 3 lanes on each side, it's real busy, and people are speeding around and acting like, oh, why are you going so slow? And you're going the speed limit, I just found out the other day, recently, I looked it up, like if somebody gets, because I always say this about people going in neighborhoods where it's 30, and they're driving like 50 in my neighborhood. And there's a school, an elementary school right there, and right behind it is the park. It's the park in our, the estates out here. We have our own elementary school and park. And people drive 50, 60 down these roads. And I found out that 50, just before the court cost, just the ticket is $500. $500 here in Texas. That's what I read online. I don't know if that's true, but that's quite a bit. But I can't believe this rain. And so, yeah, it wasn't supposed to, but when I sit down, I noticed, I said, what are those little drops? Yeah, I saw another one. Yep, it's dripping. Rain. Just a little drip, drip. Now look at it. Since I started making this video. Wow. Anyway, that was a bittersweet memories. But I do miss that of being around people. That's how I was raised. The way I was raised was that, as if I would always live there. I never, since I was 18, I moved away. And only a couple times maybe I moved back there for a short period of time, very short. And, but other than that, I've lived in places where it's just not the same thing with community. That's a town. There's always a debate, and was back then, of how big is a town. I think they have like 10,000 now. It hasn't really changed much in the past, say, 20 years or so. And so I don't know. I try to find how many people it was, the population, when I was a child and a teenager. Could never find it. But I mean, it was kind of like we thought, as if you don't know the person or their family, you know somebody who knows the family, or they know somebody who knows the family. Somebody knows and somebody knows somebody. Somebody you would be able to say, oh, I bet I know who knows them, So, it's a lot of people went to school together, and they just stayed there. It was its own little community. The whole town had a great community. Some people would disagree, because there was a darker side to it too. But overall, you didn't have to live in that dark side. Okay, anyway, this is, like I said, bittersweet. But I miss that. I miss the, having people around you, because I live in a big city suburb of Dallas. It's both a city and a suburb. And actually, the area I live in, some would say it's an exurb because we're surrounded by farms and ranches, on the outskirts of the outskirts. And it's a nice place, it really is, but not much community. So, anyway, wrapping it up. Talk to you on another video. Bye.